It can be really hard to know where to start when you first decide on a new national park. So, if you're visiting Olympic National Park, Washington, and have just started planning, then this episode is for you. Because we're going to look at all of the basics so that you have an understanding of the park. We're going to look at the layout of the park, the different sections in the park, the highlights, and some key things that you need to know about how to visit Olympic National Park. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written numerous guides and published several itineraries for Olympic National Park. By the end of the episode, you'll have a much better understanding of what the park is like, what to expect, and how to navigate it. From there, of course, you'll need to get deeper into planning all of the logistics, but this is a great place to start. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. If you're listening somewhere else, follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. And stay to the end when I'll be sharing the one thing that you need in this park that you rarely need in national parks, but you absolutely have to have for Olympic. But let's get started with the basics.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian, the national park expert. He is here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
Let's start with an overview of where the park is and what are the different areas in the park. Olympic National Park lies on most of the Olympic Peninsula near Seattle. And there are 4 different ecosystems in the park, which makes it one of the most interesting ones to visit, I think. There's the mountains, and there are incredible views over the surrounding mountains, and on clear days you can see all the way to Canada, actually, from the top of the mountains. There's also temperate rainforest. This has some of the best temperate rainforest in the entire world. They are draped in moss. There's these incredible big leaf maple trees that are super weirdly shaped. There's enormous ferns, really lush undergrowth. They're really, really amazing. There's also the lowland forests, the lakes, and the rivers. There's some really great waterfalls there as well. And then there are the Pacific beaches. And the beaches here are not your typical beach. They're nothing like the Caribbean. There's no palm trees, but there are enormous driftwood logs of gigantic trees that have been stripped of their branches and bark and are now strewn along the beaches. There's really dramatic sea stacks offshore. They're just incredibly beautiful. You're not going to lie out and sunbathe on them, of course, but you may spend a lot of time exploring the tide pools there, which we'll talk about as well. So these are the 4 main ecosystems, and they're spread out over several separate, unconnected areas. Highway 101 goes around the peninsula, and there are roads that are offshoots of this that go to different sections of the park. There are no roads across the park itself. About 95% of the park is wilderness. So we're going to look at what to see in Olympic National Park and what to do there. But maybe the easiest way to do that is to look at the different regions. The main area to access the mountains is Hurricane Ridge. You get there from the Heart of the Hills entrance, which is near Port Angeles, which is one of the major gateway towns. There's a campground and some lowland forest hikes at the Heart of the Hills area, just near the entrance, and there is a paid entrance station there. There are several hikes at Hurricane Ridge. My favorite is Hurricane Hill, which is mostly paved, actually. I've seen plenty of people with strollers on this trail, although it does get kind of steep in parts, so hold on to the stroller coming down. The trail passes meadows and has really great views. It's about 1.5 miles and it takes a couple of hours. The main Olympic National Park Visitor Center is at the beginning of this road in Port Angeles, so it's worth stopping off there for some information. There's a store there. A little further east of the Hurricane Ridge Road and area is Deer Park. This is not a major area. Not that many people go there. Unless you have about a week to spend in the park, I probably wouldn't bother too much with Deer Park, but if you've got more time, you want to escape the crowds, it's definitely a place to go. From the Hurricane Ridge area, if you're heading west, the next main area you'll get to is Elwha Valley. The main highlight there is Madison Falls, which is not a huge waterfall, but it's very accessible. The main Elwha Valley area you can't drive into anymore. You used to be able to, but they actually undammed the valley, so now a lot of it's flooded, which is kind of cool because they're returning it to the way that it's supposed to be. Heading further west, you'll get to Lake Crescent. This is a roughly crescent-shaped lake. There you can access both the north and the south shores. The most facilities are on the south shore. My favorite hike in Lake Crescent area is the 2-mile hike to Marymere Falls. It's not the biggest waterfall in the park, but its setting is really beautiful. It drops straight down into a pool surrounded by forest. It's very beautiful. There is a rail trail along the north shore that you can cycle or hike along. It's kind of cool. But on the south shore, the main access point is at the Lake Crescent Lodge area. And then at the far end, the western end of Lake Crescent, is the Fairholme Campground. Heading further west, you'll come to the Solduck area. The road is an offshoot road heading roughly south and goes up to Duc Hot Springs and Duc Falls. There are some hot springs there that you can book. They're not very naturey. They are natural hot springs, but they're in concreted pools. I like it, but it's not for everybody. And then Duc Waterfall is probably the most famous, most dramatic waterfall in the park, and that's reached along a bit of a hike. There are on the Olympic Peninsula just regular residential areas or privately owned properties. There are also several Indian reservations, but along the actual west coast are the Pacific beaches, and there are several beaches that are not connected to each other but are little pockets of the national park. At the very north is the Shai Beach. This is reached from the north. Nearby, but accessed from a different road, is Ozette Beach, also from the north but a little bit further south. And then if you're back on Highway 101, you get to Forks, and then at Forks you go west on 110 to the Rialto Beach, which is on a north fork of the road near the end, or a little bit of a south fork, you go to the La Push beaches, which are first, second, and third beaches. First Beach is the most accessible, but my favorite is Second Beach. It's a 2.2-mile hike to get there, and you need to scramble over driftwood logs to actually get onto the beach. But if you have the mobility, I really recommend it. The sea stacks offshore are spectacular. Third Beach is also great, and especially great if you're a hiker, because you can take a trail at the southern end of the beach. You kind of scramble up a slope using a rope and a rough ladder that's there, and then you can continue along the coast through the forest. And then back on the main road, you're keeping driving further along. Now you're heading south. You'll come to the road to the Hoh Rainforest, and that goes into the most famous rainforest in the park. It's not the only one, and not even necessarily the best, but it's definitely the most famous. A little further along Highway 101, you come to Kalaloch area, which is Beach 4, Kalaloch Beach, where there's the Tree of Life, famous tree hanging over a little ravine. It's sagging over time, but it's still living. Beach 4 has, in my opinion, the best tide pooling in the park. And nearby Ruby Beach is also really stunning. You'll come to Queets Rainforest, which is not as popular, but it is there. And then at the southern end, you'll come to the Quinault area, which is the northern shore is the national park, and the southern shore is the Quinault National Forest. Here, there's a really nice loop drive around the lake and along the river a little bit, and a really beautiful rainforest hike and a historic homestead. So there are multiple unconnected parts of the park. Not all of them have an entrance station to get into. In fact, there are only 3 entrance stations that require you to pay the entrance fee to get into. One of them is the road to Hurricane Ridge, one of them is the road to Solduck Valley, and one of them is the road to Hoh Rainforest. To access the other areas, you won't pass through an entrance station. You should have a pass for the park, of course, but you won't go through an entrance station. Because those 3 you do, they can be choke points. Each of those areas has limited parking, so the National Park Service will close the entrance stations when the parking is full in those areas. So I always recommend going to those areas earlier rather than later, so you don't spend a whole heap of your time waiting in your vehicle to get into that area of the park. This is especially true on weekends and holidays. Obviously in the summer, you don't want to spend 1 or 2 hours waiting in your vehicle, so go early. Before we look at even more detail of Olympic National Park, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. It really does help. I mentioned Port Angeles already. This is one of the major gateway towns. Others nearby are Sequim and Port Townsend. And then on the west side of the peninsula, there's Forks. The nearest major city is Seattle, and this is where you'll probably fly into. There's also a ferry between Victoria in Canada and Port Angeles, but most people will probably fly. Now, I strongly recommend, if you're spending a couple of days or more in the park, to not stay in the same place for your entire trip. I recommend staying in Port Angeles or nearby and staying in Forks or nearby, because the driving distances are pretty big between them. It's a large national park and you don't want to spend a whole chunk of your day each day driving. If you move accommodation, which I know can be a bit of a pain, then you'll spend less time driving to the main attractions, the main areas of the park each day. There's no facilities at Hurricane Ridge. There used to be a day lodge there, but it burned down in 2023. So there's no food, there's no fuel, there's no gift shop or anything like that. There's also no gas or food services. At the Hoh Rainforest, there is a visitor center, which is nice, but there's no gas or food services there. And in Duc, there is the Duc Hot Springs Resort that has some limited facilities, but you're always better off packing in a picnic lunch. Gives you more flexibility, making sure that you fill up on gas somewhere along Highway 101 before you head into these more isolated areas of the park. If you're wondering where to stay when visiting Olympic National Park, you have plenty of options. I already mentioned Port Angeles and Forks, but there are also options inside the national park itself. There's Lake Crescent Lodge, which is on the south shore of Lake Crescent. There's Log Cabin Resort, which is on the north shore of Lake Crescent. In the Quinault area, there's Lake Quinault Lodge. It's actually in the National Forest or just across the road from the National Forest, but it's a classic lodge. There are plenty of other places to stay around Lake Quinault as well. In Duc, there's the Hot Springs Resort. There's cabins there. And there's the Kalaloch Lodge in the Kalaloch area. And there's plenty of other areas outside the national park where you can stay. There are also 15 developed campgrounds scattered throughout the national park, so there's plenty of places to stay. You will be driving a lot in Olympic National Park. There's no shuttle service there. The road up to Hurricane Ridge is 17 miles. It is a narrow, winding road. It has a main summer season. It is also open during the winter, but it's typically only open from Friday through Sunday and on holiday weekends, and it's always weather and road conditions permitting. You need tire chains because it does get very, very snowy. The other thing I will say about driving is that the roads can get washed out. The road to the Hoh Rainforest is notorious for getting washed out. It runs low right beside the Hoh River. And if the river floods, which it does do, it can wipe the road out and then it can be gone for several months. And that's happened a couple of times in the recent years. So always check with current conditions and just always be really mindful about parking restrictions and limitations. You can see there's plenty of stuff to do in Olympic National Park. There's the water when you're on Lake Crescent or Lake Quinault. You can go swimming, it's very cold. You can kayak or canoe. There's tons of hiking. There's the hot springs. There's the beaches. There's the mountain views, mountain hiking. There's just so much to do that it can be really confusing to know how to put it all together into an itinerary that actually makes the most sense. Timing is really important. You don't want to spend ages waiting to get into an entrance. You don't want to be in the same place with a million other people at the same time. You have to figure out drive times because the distances between each of these attractions can be pretty high. Parking can be a problem. Like many national parks, it can be tricky to plan for. Olympic, I think, is one of the most challenging because it has so many amazing things, but because it is so spread out with pretty big distances between them, timing is really important. Because many people have mentioned to me how overwhelming and confusing it can be to plan an itinerary for Olympic. To help with this, I created some really detailed itineraries. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 day options, and they're designed to take away the overwhelm. There's a link in the show notes below, but we can take a quick walkthrough now. They start with an overview of the park with essential information, and then there's a daily breakdown, an hour by hour, almost minute by minute breakdown, and there's different options for the same area of the park at the same time of day, because not everybody has the same interest or the same energy levels or the same mobility. Maybe you're traveling with other people and you want to split up, or you just want to create a little bit more of a customized version of the itinerary. So you can create your own version of it. And then it has all the information that you need. There's hiking descriptions and maps, there's driving descriptions and maps, there's timings, there's tips, there's all of the essential information so that everything that you need is there. They're designed to be a kind of a plug and play. I said there's already some flexibility built in, so it's not a one size fits all. But if you want to customize it even more, some people do use all that information and create an even more bespoke itinerary for themselves. Rather than having to pull information from multiple different sources, everything is there in the one place. Without these itineraries, people often find planning a trip to Olympic kind of stressful, kind of overwhelming. But with them, they have peace of mind that they're in the right place at the right time, and they're seeing all of the best things that they can in the time that they have available. Just follow the links in the show notes below. Now, as promised, what's something that you absolutely need when you visit Olympic National Park? This comes hand in hand with the itinerary. You need both, but something you can't do without is a tide chart. And I've actually included one as a free bonus extra in the itineraries with an explanation of how to use them. One of the main activities that you do on the beaches in Olympic is to explore the tide pools. It's very cool. There's green anemones, there's purple and orange sea stars, there's little hermit crabs, very cool. But it's only possible at low tide. The tide pools are completely underwater at high tide, but so are the beaches for the main part. So even if you just want to walk along the beach, you still need to time it at low tide. This means that you need to know when the low tides are, and you need to adapt your schedule around the tides. They change throughout the year. Sometimes there's super low tides, sometimes there's less low tides. But no matter when you go, you absolutely need to refer to a tide chart. Otherwise, you're just going to rock up and the entire beach will be underwater, which is not what you want. If you want help planning your trip, then check the links in the description box below. There's a bunch of planning and booking resources that you can use to plan and book your trip. And keep watching my videos to get even more help so that you can have the best national parks vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about the next episode, subscribe and click below.